Hello, California, and welcome to this week's edition of Your Financial Compass, the show that's dedicated to helping you successfully navigate to and through your retirement. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, and I'm here in the studio with two members of Bulman Wealth Group. We have Chris Bulman, he is the founder and financial advisor, and financial advisor Scott Vlahon. Chris, Scott, it's great to be back with you. How are you this week?
You know, just dealing with this guy.
So I was going to say we have a fantasy football league in our office that Chris runs and his son runs. Mm-hmm. Speaking of sons, my son's 6. This is his first year playing. We're in last place right now. So I'm going to fire him as assistant head coach and just take it on.
Oh, man.
Maybe he'll fire me. I don't know. Oh. Chris doesn't play. He has his boys play and he just sits back and laughs at it.
And enjoys every moment.
4 sons. I don't need to play.
Right?
So,
yeah.
Oh, well, you guys have put together another fabulous show for our viewers at home. If you're new to us, we like to have a lot of fun, but this is really about you, the viewer, and making sure you have a solid plan in place to help you reach your goals in retirement. And our show concept today, this is kind of a fun concept. We're going to be talking about big birthdays. There are so many key dates and important birthdays that you come upon that affect different aspects of your retirement planning. And, you know, we might not necessarily all enjoy this concept of aging. We've talked about this off the show, right? But as my my grandmother-in-law, I should say, she lived to be 98 years old. She used to say, having another birthday is better than the alternative. And so we are celebrating today the fact that the longer we live, there's different things that we need to take into consideration. But there are several key dates, actual birthdays, even half birthdays in retirement that we need to be aware of. So first up, let's start with age 50. Right? So we're getting into that retirement red zone, if you will, within maybe 10, 15 years of retirement at that point. What's important to understand about this first big birthday of turning 50?
Well, so first of all, turning 50, it's different for everyone. I always hear people say, oh, I turned 30 and I'm stressed out, and I turned 40 and I'm stressed out. None of those birthdays have ever bothered me, but I woke up at 50 and for the first time...
Your back hurt. I was tired.
No, but for the first time I started thinking, holy cow, I'm like...
Yeah, it's a huge milestone.
Well, yes, I'll leave it at that. So you start thinking about things like, you know, how many more years do I have left? And people that are 60 or 65 are laughing at me, but it's true. You start thinking about these things. And so some of the things that starts happening once you turn 50 financially are, one, you can contribute more to catch up on your IRAs and your 401k.
That catch-up contribution comes into play.
Yes. So if you're contributing to your IRAs and you want to contribute more, there is a catch-up contribution that you can add more money to your IRAs. For your 401k as well, it's quite a bit larger for your 401k. So depending on when this show airs and re-airs, I don't want to mention numbers because they keep changing.
They change all the time, so it's important to stay abreast of that, right?
Yes, but so one thing happens is we can contribute more and have some tax deferral if we want it. And then second is we call these our high earnings years. So kind of 50s and 60s up until retirement, those are typically our highest earning, unless you're a professional athlete or something, then they're probably your lowest earning years. But for the rest of us, that it's our highest income earning years. And so not only are we allowed to put away more, hopefully we have more money to put away. And we also start thinking, a lot of us, if our kids aren't already in college, we're realizing, you know, we've maybe have some catch up to do.
Right.
So we need to contribute more to our 401k, 403b, 457 IRAs. We also need to contribute more to college, either because they're in college or because we want to get them prepared to go to college. So all of these things, as we're making more money, it just gives us more opportunity to sort of fuel that later retirement account and the college account while we're making our highest income years. And we only have that window from 50 to whenever you're going to retire, 55, 60, 65, whatever it might be. These are our years to really max that out.
Of that, absolutely. Well, the next milestone we need to talk about is actually a half birthday. And I think it's funny. I think kids, you know, there's a certain age where they're so excited to say, I'm 9.5, right? Because you're closer to 10. As adults, we kind of don't really celebrate the half birthday as much. Yeah. But 59.5, that's a key critical year. So talk to us about that.
Well, Chris will be 50.5 soon, but moving on. So 59.5 is this interesting age that we reach where a lot of times when we're first putting into a 401k or an IRA, sometimes we'll joke, that's 59.5 money. What that means is once you hit that age of 59.5 or older, you can start accessing funds without penalty from an IRA, from a 401k. So the first thing it opens up is the ability to access those funds. Because if you do it prior to 59 and a half, you pay taxes if there's any involved, and you pay an extra 10% penalty. Once you have 59 and a half, as the current rules stand, as Chris talked, that 10% penalty is gone. So A, the money is available. B, a lot of times when folks are still working and they have a 401k at their office or their workplace, it opens up the door to what are called in-service distributions or in-service rollovers. That's where, say, John or Jane Doe is working. They're going to work for 4 or 5 more years, but at that age, they can take that money in their 401k and roll it into an IRA. So I would say a simple rule is it's always a 400 number account when it's attached to a workplace, 401k, 403b, 457. It becomes an IRA once it moves away. But an IRA gives you more control, which I'll let Chris kind of tell you more about.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different reasons you might want to move the money from your 401k over to your IRA. One of them is, you turn 59 and a half. We talked about the fears and the wake-up call at 50. Well, at 59 and a half, now you're getting really close to retirement. And, especially in 2022, we saw people with international funds and growth funds, and some people lost 20 to 50% in their retirement accounts, depending on how aggressive they were.
Yep.
And so those folks that were able to move their money after 59 and a half over to their IRA, it opens up a lot more opportunity to add protection, add guarantees,
We have so many more
add
options
safety,
at your
diversification,
disposal,
full
right?
control. You can speak to your advisor directly instead of calling an 800 number. You have someone that will help you with all these things. So those are some of the main reasons you'll want to think about at 59 and a half, if your plan allows it, to do an in-service distribution over to your IRA, which is a non-taxable event.
Right.
And you said options. Generally, what we found with most 401k plans is they're limited to the number of funds that you can invest in, 10 to 20, 10 to 25, just to keep costs down. It's pretty normal. But as you were saying, Kristen, if you're to roll it into an IRA with an advisor like ourselves, obviously we're going to have a much wider array of options, where we joke it's like you go to Chick-fil-A, you order a chicken sandwich, we're the food court. If you want other, a wider array of options. So that's one of the nicest things.
A really fancy food court, by the way.
Yeah, not the Sbarro. We were in Chicago last week. There's Sbarro. It took me back to the late 90s, getting the giant manhole size pizza.
Right.
Anyhow, if you are still working and you've got a 401k at your workplace and you like the idea of maybe having more control over it, working directly with an advisor, having more options, then that's one of the things that we can talk about. You can call the number, schedule a complimentary financial compass review. That can be one of the things we discuss amongst the other services we provide. But a lot of folks didn't even know you can do that. So you can schedule a time, we'll have a conversation about that and other things, and see where it leads us.
Wonderful. Scott, Chris, thank you so much. To our viewers at home, that number to call to get your very own financial compass review from Chris and Scott and the team of Bulman Wealth Group is there on the bottom of your screen. Simply dial 888-970-4685. You're also welcome to take out your smartphone. You can just open up that camera app, point it, click and scan that QR code in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. That will take you over to a landing page, ask you a few short, simple questions, and a member of the team will reach out to you to connect to schedule your complimentary visit that way as well. Again, this is for no cost, no charge, no obligation. And Chris and Scott and the team of Bulman Wealth are excited to meet you and connect with you and be able to serve you any way that they can. When we come back, we've covered a lot of what happens of the decade in our 50s. What big birthdays do you need to be prepared for in your 60s and your 70s? We'll be back with more right after this.
Successful retirement to me is someone who doesn't have to worry about where their next paycheck's going to come from, where the income's going to come from. Are they going to run out of income? Are they going to run out of money? Are they going to meet their financial goals with respect to maybe they want to leave money to their children? Maybe they want to leave money to a philanthropy or a university. Solving all those issues is what a secure retirement looks like.
Being able to wake up and know the day is an open slate and not having to worry about things. Or say someone's going on a trip with family, they're going to the beach, and if the headline says, the market's down again or something, they're not concerned. Bulman Wealth has my back here. We've got a plan in place. my portfolio set up in a way that concern is not there. The plan and finances should not be the concern once they get to that stage of working with us and entering into retirement.
Welcome back. You're watching Your Financial Compass. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, and I'm joined by Chris Bulman and Scott Vlahon from Bulman Wealth Group. We are talking today about big birthdays. What are those key birthdays and milestones that you need to be aware of as it relates to your financial plan and your retirement planning? So in the first segment, we talked about the decade of the 50s, some couple key birthdays during that decade. Let's transition now to the 60s. And of course, the next big birthday on our list here is age 62. I'm sure some of you out there are already knowing where we're going with this, but what is so key about age 62?
Yeah, 62 is a big one because that's the first time we're able to take Social Security income, although it's not the full retirement account, but we're able to actually take it. So for some of us that are ready to take income and we need it, that's the first time we can take it.
Right. Well, and it's interesting because I think a lot of folks have this in their head ingrained, oh, it's 62, it's time to claim. But we all know that that might not necessarily be the right strategy because to your point, Chris, it's not what full retirement age is. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, full retirement age, we're gonna dig into the numbers here in a second, but you're looking at 66, 67, that's what we call FRA, which is full retirement age. And it depends on when you were born, which
there's a chart, right?
There's a chart and numbers, and I'll give you all those numbers, but it's every year prior to your FRA, it's discounted. And it's discounted as much as 30% back to age 62. So when I talk to people about should you take it at 62, maybe you should. If there's reasons you should, there's a crossover point. I guess first I'll just say come and see us and we'll show you what the crossover points are. Right. But generally, if you take it at 62 versus age 67 or 70, the crossover points about age 77, 78. So in other words, if you live to age 77, 78 or longer, and you remember taking it at 62, you'll wish you would have waited.
Yes.
Because
you're locked in at that lower amount.
Yes, and for the rest of your years after age 77, 78, you'll have been ahead had you waited. But generally, people forgot that they did this analysis anyway by that age. And the other thing is this, especially if you're a married couple and you're thinking about taking it at 62, especially if you're the higher income earner. If you're the higher income earner and you take it at 62, even if you do pass away at 75, 77, your spouse now is relegated to that lower amount for the rest of their life. So if they live to be age 100, you've made a decision to take it at 62, which will impact their income all the way to the rest of their life.
Because when a spouse passes away, you only get to keep one Social Security check, but you get to keep the higher of the two. So to your point, if the higher earner claims earlier, they're locked in at that lower amount. That's going to have long-reaching consequences.
That's right. And I don't want to mischaracterize. You still get the cost of living increases and everything, but you'll always be behind what you would have been had you waited. And of course, if you wait, the other thing to make sure that you understand is if you wait till 67 from 62, you will have a higher amount, but you'll have 5 years of income that you didn't collect that you have to catch up.
Yes.
And that's where that crossover point of, let's say 77 is. By then, you've caught up to all the income you would have gotten at age 62 and beyond, and now you would have been better off potentially waiting until 67.
There's just so many personal factors that far outweigh the math. Your family situation, your health, all these things can come into play. And that's why it's so important too, because if you call the Social Security Administration, they can give you information, but they are not allowed to give you personalized, individualized advice. And the only way you can get that is by coming in and meeting with folks such as yourselves to really help look at all these personal factors.
Yes, and just one other thing I'll add, to Stephanie and Alyssa here in the control room and to 20s and 30-somethings out there, the more that you prepare by adding money to your IRAs and your 401ks early and for the next 30 years, the less it really matters that much. Social Security is meant to be a supplement to our income.
Yes, it was never meant to be your sole source. Right. Yeah. And yet so many people are in that scary situation because they didn't do the proper planning. So we want to make sure that you're prepared. All right, we got to talk about the next big milestone in our 60s. Age 65, and with age 65 comes a very important M word, which is
Medicare. I was going to think of something funny, but nothing came to me.
Marital bliss.
Marital bliss. So Medicare, 65 is when Medicare kicks in, and there's so much. It's such a vast world, Medicare. There's parts A, B, C, and D. What does each one mean? Did you know you have to pay for parts B, C, and D? What does that mean? Different parts cover different things. And a lot of folks, as they're working, or say they retire at 63, each month you're getting closer to 65, it just starts like, what does this all mean? And it's such a interesting territory, and all these different things can have a factor from, what coverage options do you select? What is your income? For certain income earners, you almost get penalized and you pay more for Medicare. So Medicare planning is a big factor, and we've positioned ourselves over the years with people that are experts. Chris and I know about it, but it's a whole nother territory where you want to work with someone who's an expert, and we've positioned ourselves with that person. And the point is, it's a discussion we need to have before you turn 65.
Yes.
Because they're ready for you, they being the government, to push the button when you turn 65 to turn it on.
And there's a marketing machine that comes into play.
It's a whole animal unto itself, but it's not something you wait until you're 65, then you call. They want you to have those preparations. So generally, I'm telling folks we work with, once you're around 64, start having those conversations. What does it mean? What do these different parts mean? What carrier do you want to be with? Did you know you need to reapply every year, re-enroll? It's a lot of work.
It's very involved. And it changes constantly too. This is why you need to work with an expert who's on the pulse of all these different changes. Because to your point too, I've heard stories of people, maybe they sold a second home, right? All of a sudden their income skyrockets and they get their Medicare statements, and now their Medicare premiums have gone up, and they're like, I don't know why. Well, it's because there was a change in income that year, and that has an adverse effect on those Medicare premiums.
Yeah, so something which seems as trivial as planning your income, we have some folks we work with where they want to designate it down to how much they're receiving each year to keep those Medicare costs at bay so they know what to expect. Because none of us like surprises. You don't want to, when you re-enroll the next year, say you had a big life event, you sell something, or you traded out some investments, or you inherited some money and it caused a higher income. Well, no one likes that surprise when you see your Medicare bill go up 3x. That stings. Good news is it can adjust back. It doesn't just stay up and then you're stuck at that level.
And it generally happens the second year after. So that's something to prepare, especially in California. We have a lot of people that sell, big real estate chunks or commercial real estate. And then all of a sudden, 2 years later, they're shocked that their Social Security is affected so adversely. But that's something that's important to know. And, just kind of moving on as we finish this segment here, so we're going to talk 66 and 67. I know you're going to tee this up for me. 66 and 67 are the next big birth dates here. And so I'm going to read this. Social Security full retirement age, FRA, is 66 if you're born prior to 1954. It increases gradually if you're born between 55 and 60, meaning it could be age 66 and 2 months, age 66 and 4 months.
They get down to the exact month.
Yes. For anyone born 60 or later, your FRA is age 67. Now from age 6, so FRA again is full retirement age. That's where you get your full Social Security benefit.
Right.
And every year that you wait beyond that, it's an 8% increase.
Per year.
So now if you want to get 132% of your FRA, you wait until age 70.
Right.
So you get 68, 69, 70. So if your FRA was 66.
Yeah.
So again, but it comes down to, when do I need the income? What's best for my spouse and myself? And it's all individuals. There's no, if anyone tells you there's one right answer, there's not.
No.
There's so many different factors that go into it.
And there will be a pop quiz on this. What Chris just said when we have our first meeting. We'll ask, do you remember all these acronyms?
He's
got
kidding.
all kinds of acronyms. But not a quiz, just kidding.
Right. But there's so much to your point that comes into play. And this is why you have to look at the whole the whole puzzle, if you will, from this comprehensive, holistic point of view. Because again, how you make a decision in one area will and can affect all of the others. Then we have to look at the taxation of Social Security as well, right? So several key things to be thinking about with these important birthdays.
And the good news is, if you're at home and it's like, that guy referenced 1,000 acronyms and ages, how can I keep in track?
It's as clear as soup, alphabet soup.
Yeah, the good news is you don't have to. When we're working with folks, that's why you work with an advisor to walk you through these things. And that's one of the things, if this is all confusing to you or you have questions about Medicare, about Social Security, about taxes, income planning, then schedule a time. You can call the number and we'll have what we call a complimentary, no obligation financial compass review. We can talk about this. We can walk through different simulations to see the different, how taking Social Security at one age affects it long-term versus another, and just map all these things out to relieve that panic of, what do I do? Find someone that knows what they're doing, that does this day in and day out, that could be us, and we'll walk you through what it means for your situation.
Absolutely. Well, Scott and Chris, thank you to our viewers at home. Just to put your minds at ease, you don't need to be an expert in these things. You just get to be an expert in you. What do you want your retirement to look like? What goals and dreams do you have? And then they can put together this complimentary financial compass review to help you make those dreams a reality. All you need to do is call that number, 888-970-4685, or scan that QR code in the bottom right-hand corner, and that will get you connected as well. We have the 60s behind us. Next up, we're going to be talking about key birthdays in your 70s right after this.
The work never seems to end until the day it finally does. After nearly a lifetime on the job, you should be rewarded for all the time you spent working. Whether that's crossing off items on your bucket list, learning a new passion, or rekindling the love of an old one. After all, life isn't over when you stop working. It's the start of an all-new chapter. The one where you're the writer and you get to choose how your story will go. A way to achieve that is by having a clear financial plan to sustain your golden years. The biggest fear most retirees have is if they'll have enough money to maintain the lifestyle they've always enjoyed. Having a plan to help protect you against the curveballs life often throws will help to maintain your lifestyle. Call today to get your free written financial plan so you may live every day to the fullest and enjoy the retirement of your dreams.
Well, welcome back to Your Financial Compass. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, here with Chris Bulman and Scott Vlahon from Bulman Wealth Group. We are talking today about big birthdays, those key milestones that affect certain aspects of your financial planning so that you can be prepared to navigate them well. We've talked about the decades of the 50s. We talked about big birthdays in the 60s. It's time to transition to the 70s and beyond. So let's start with age 70.
We hit 70. Congrats if you've reached that point. So in the last segment, if we didn't spin your head with acronyms, we'll see if we can work some more in. But so at 70, we come back to the topic of Social Security. That's where SS, yes, SS. Let's be SS tops out at 70. That's where it hits its ceiling.
Bottom line, there's no point in waiting to take Social Security beyond age 70 because the amount of the check will not rise.
That's exactly right. And say Chris referenced full retirement age, FRA at 67. Well, each year we wait, say from 67 to 70, your Social Security benefit increases by 8% a year. So you could say if you start Social Security at 70, it's going to be 124% of what your age 67 amount was. And that looks great on paper. Wow, those are attractive numbers if you've seen your Social Security statements. But they've done a survey, 10% of people plan to wait. It looks nice, but there's so many factors where you'll get the highest amount, but what if you have health issues? What if there's all these other, or what if you have income limitations that you need the money sooner? So it's not a slam dunk to say you need to start taking Social Security at 70, but it's understanding that's where it tops out, as you said. You do not wait past that point, but it's also understanding don't feel guilty if you start sooner because there's all these different factors why you should or should not wait. But just understand that's where it tops out. It's not moving any higher after that point.
Well, the last big birthday we're probably going to have time for on today's show is age 72/73. Let's talk about that age, why it's important, and why it's kind of a in-between, if you will.
Yeah, so now we're bringing in RMDs, right?
Ooh,
Another
more acronyms.
Right.
So it's required minimum distributions. So we get to a point in our 70s and the government says, okay, we've deferred. This is, by the way, this is you talk about annuities. This is the best annuity the government's ever invented because they've let you defer all these taxes and then the government gets to tell you, now you have to pay us money.
Right, it's an annuity in their best interest, right? Not ours.
It's
Let's be clear about
their
that.
best interest because they get to tell you, you have to take income whether you need it or not.
Right.
And they're your partner. And I've heard it said that they're the general partner. They're the general partner, you're the minority partner. And the reason is because they get to tell you when you should take it, number one, and they get to tell you how much taxes you have to pay on it.
Right.
So at age, it used to be 70 and a half for people that are watching that are in their mid 70s. You had to start yours at 70 and a half. Then it went to age 72, and then most recently it's moved to age 73.
And there's even talk of it changing again.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sure it'll change again.
Right.
And so, and the taxes most people think will change as well and continue to go up.
Right.
So those are the ages that you need to know, though, is 70 and a half previously, then 72, 73. And those are for all accounts, defined contribution accounts, which are accounts that you contributed to, the 401ks, 403bs, 457, SEPs, IRAs, things like that, that you contributed to and deferred taxes on throughout your lifetime. You're now required to begin paying taxes on those accounts.
Yes. I always like to think of it, the qualified accounts mean that you are qualified to pay taxes on that money. And I think a lot of people are in for a rude awakening. You know, I've even met folks who have never even heard the term RMD. I was actually in a conversation with a good friend who is 65, her husband's 70. They've put a lot of money away, working hard. I was talking about being on the show with you guys, and I always get questions about, oh, tell me more about this, right? And I brought up the subject of RMDs, and they looked at me and said, what is that? And what shocked me was they have been working, I mean, they're intelligent individuals. They've been working with another financial advisor from a corporate firm for many years. Their advisor has never even had this conversation with them. Do you find that that is often the case?
We find that in a lot of times when someone comes in, maybe they've been working with an advisor, a lot of instances is that advisor is only talking to them about maybe they have a large stock account or point is they're normally only talking to them about their investment accounts. They're not talking about RMDs. They're not talking about taxes. They're not talking about Social Security and what the different ages mean. They're not talking about inflation. They're not talking about
pieces,
all
right?
these different ages that we've referenced all show. It's like, it's all of these pieces. If they're only talking to you about this money in this investment account, that's important, but there's it's like going to the movies and watching like the first 20 minutes. It's like, well, what about the rest? There's so many other factors in that movie. And that's where looking at the big picture and what do all these things mean, and someone that we do this day in and day out of, and mapping through the different scenarios because everyone is unique. Chris said earlier, maybe you need to start Social Security at 62 for a myriad of reasons. Or maybe you wait until 67, or maybe you wait until 70 if that's a possibility. But it's all about sitting down to talk about.
Yeah, and I would say even if you're in your 30s, 40s, or 50s, you're a high income earner, you have a net worth of $500,000, $1 million or higher, you need to know what those taxes are going to be when you do turn 70 and a half, because it's a big deal.
It is.
And if that's something you've been thinking about, we'd love to help.
Absolutely. Engaging that strategic tax planning, so important. Well, Chris, Scott, thank you so much. Always a joy to be with you. Again, that number to call to get your very own complimentary financial compass review, 888-970-4685, or you can scan that QR code to get connected as well. We appreciate you watching. We hope you've enjoyed today's episode on key important birthdays for your retirement. We look forward to being back with you next week.